And the stage is set. We've known this for a handful of days now, but the Orlando Magic will welcome in the Atlanta Hawks to their play-in game, 7-8 seed in the Eastern Conference. We're going to be talking about each team's case for the win. Plus, we're doing a mini-season recap because the season's not over just yet for the Orlando Magic. Hopefully, not soon. So we're going to be talking a little bit about how this team got to where they are today, which is a 41-41 record, division champs, and the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference that is going to be playing in the play-in game tomorrow. All right, so a little bit of a channel update before we kind of get into everything as well. Guys, make sure that you're subscribing to the channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs. Here are the numbers that you guys see a lot of the time. These are a little bit updated, though. 55% of you who are watching these videos regularly are not subscribed, so join the 45%. But that number is much further up than, whenever I was kind of stuck on the, I think it was like, 25% or something like that. So the number's up, so I appreciate you guys. Okay, so over the next day or so, I'm going to be doing a collaboration with Hawks Digest, and we're going to be talking about this game, this play-in game. And then that night, probably not going to do a watch-along. Would have really liked to, but maybe I'll hop on for the second half, so that would be a live stream where you guys could come on and just talk Magic basketball with me. And then after that, I will definitely be talking post-game about the results from that game. Hopefully the win for the Orlando Magic, but you never know. It's one game, and anything can happen in a one-off between some of these NBA teams, especially a team like the Atlanta Hawks. They can get hot at any time. Okay, so how are the Orlando Magic in the position that they're in right now? Well, this comes from Paolo Banchero missing 34 games, Franz Wagner missing 20, Jalen Suggs being out for the season after only playing in 31 total games, him keeping us afloat. And unfortunately, this team is simply one of the worst three-point shooting teams that have been in the NBA over the last 10 years. This defense is stout. They don't give up any more than, their defensive rating is second in the league. Their offensive rating is 27th in the league. Look, this team is really talented top to bottom defensively, but they just don't have enough offensively. At times that has shown. Jamahl Mosley has been challenged. He was at some point a Coach of the Year candidate, maybe in December. That has faded. A lot of Magic fans are tired of his offensive sets. Jeff Weltman did not make a move at the deadline. We thought this team needed to make some sort of move, have some sort of spark. That was not something that ended up happening. Bataze and Isaac have had their minutes vastly reduced as the season has gone on, especially over the last couple months. Wendell Carter Jr. has gotten more of the role. He is the starting five. And Corey Joseph is now the starting point guard. Jalen Suggs went down. We thought it would be Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony went down. Then at some point, I was preaching Anthony Black. He might just not be ready just yet. Gary Harris has had his ups and downs in the similar fashion as Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is. KCP has had more of an expectation this season, not so much for Gary Harris, but they've both been up and down guys who have shown flashes of being able to provide a spark off the bench. Now, how is Jet Howard doing from last year? Same kind of situation, but he's not in the G League, so that's an improvement. But he's not going to be making an impact probably come playoff time unless he can get hot. And Jamahl Mosley decides to trust him. Now, do we trust him as fans from watching this year? I don't know. Tristan Silva, the rookie, should be able to get more minutes than what we have seen from some of the younger players in the past, specifically last year. Will that happen? We'll just have to wait and see, because that's going to be a game-time decision by Jamahl Mosley. But that's how we're here. Ebbs and flows, injuries, worst offensive team, but a great defensive team. That is what this team is built off of, and Paolo Banchero is averaging 26 points per game. Dude's for real. Not a lot of 7 seeds, especially in the Eastern Conference, are going to have a guy like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner leading the way. This Orlando Magic team has 2 All-Stars hidden behind the injury-plagued seasons that they've had. This is no joke, a different 7 seed than you're used to. Okay, when we look at this game, but when we go against the Atlanta Hawks, we all know that last game of the regular season did not count. It did not matter. Both teams were completely had shut everything off. It was like pretty much bench versus bench. It was, if you like basketball, you're going to watch this game. If you don't, turn it off. Okay? But what we did see a handful of games ago was both teams needed to get a win. They wanted it. It was going to put them into that 7th seed, driver's seat, and the Orlando Magic were able to get it done. That was huge. They essentially kind of won the season series with that game. Now, it wasn't the same. I believe, with Atlanta winning the next one, but Orlando Magic won the tiebreakers, and that was what was so important about this game and this team. Okay, well, how do the Orlando Magic win this game against the Atlanta Hawks? So separate from what has happened in the previous matchups, where I think Orlando does still have the advantage, but the Hawks certainly are familiar with what the Magic do. Well, it's mainly going to be because of Paolo Banchero. There is not a lot of players. There are not a lot of players in the NBA that have the potential that Paolo Banchero does. This guy can be a top 10 player in the NBA and is definitely a top 20 to 25 player in the league. Okay? And Franz Wagner is equally as good. He is very, very good. But we're going to just have to rely on those guys. Say if this team can shoot good enough, make 10 threes, then they'll beat the Atlanta Hawks. The Magic are 5 of 29 this season in games where they have made less than 10 threes. One of those wins is against the Atlanta Hawks, but they're going to need to shoot and make 10 threes and rely on Paolo and Franz because this is a one-off, and that's exactly what it's going to have to be. Now, this Trae Young stat has been up for you for a while. How did the Atlanta Hawks win this game? They need to rely on Trae Young and potentially the most improved player, Dyson Daniels. Okay, Dyson Daniels is also a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. They need to rely on both of those players to end up having great games. Trae Young needs to have one of those New York Knicks games, and Dyson Daniels needs to have a game that we have seen from him all year, and that is a great, gritty defender who can put up about 15 points in the game and help out Trae Young. Okay, the number one overall pick has actually turned into a player that is really good, and especially defensively. This team may be 40 and 42, but their offensive and defensive ratings got them still in the middle of the pack, and to support Trae Young, that sometimes can be enough, especially if he can drop 40. And against this Magic team that cannot keep up offensively, we just know that is so lopsided. That is exactly how the Atlanta Hawks win. They get hot from three at any point in this game. That might blow out the Magic. They get hot, Trae Young gets hot, or maybe one other player has a different game than we're used to. That can make this Atlanta Hawks team look a lot different. Dyson Daniels would be my pick to end up doing that against the Atlanta Hawks, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, I did also have, and it was like a little bit of a sneak peek, I did also have the box score for the Atlanta Hawks from the previous game. Obviously, Okongwu had 30 points and 14 rebounds against the Orlando Magic last time. Wendell Carter Jr. did play well defensively down the stretch in this game, but Okongwu was able to enforce his will, and obviously he was 4 of 7 from 3. If the Atlanta Hawks have these shooting splits, it's going to be another close game. Now, the Magic were able to take care of business, 119 to 112 in this basketball game, and that was in part because Paolo Banchero did actually shoot so well. He shot 50% from the floor, and sometimes you see Franz or Paolo end up having games where they do end up scoring 33, 29, 27 points, but they don't really shoot all that well. That wasn't the case, so they were able to kind of withstand what was coming from the Atlanta Hawks, okay? Now, as far as the other players that were able to help out, that was the game where Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did end up having 3 threes. Wendell Carter Jr. had 17 points. As I mentioned, he played pretty well. And the bench wasn't so non-existent. This Magic team cannot have a game where they're non-existent on the bench. So that's how they were able to withstand that. And I think that's probably the most reflective game of both teams because I don't really feel like the Atlanta Hawks played poorly in that basketball game. It was just that the Magic won and they beat them. So, with all of that being said, you know how the Magic got here. You know exactly how the Atlanta Hawks are going to win, and it's going to be a very similar formula to how a lot of other teams have won. And you know how the Magic are going to win. You've watched them all season. So what is the pick? Because everybody's picking the Magic. I think everybody's leaning the Magic because they don't feel like a 7th seed. So what is the general feeling? What is the pick? I'm going to go with the Orlando Magic here. I don't really see the Atlanta Hawks pulling this off. I think if Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner can combine and this is in all honesty, if they can combine and get to 50 points, or this team can get to 10 threes, I don't know how close this game is going to be. I think the Atlanta Hawks have a lot of talented players. They have a lot of young players. They potentially have just as bright of a future when you're taking a look at some of their young players as the Orlando Magic, as long as, Trae Young is still going to be that player that you're going to build around for the future, with Dyson Daniels and some of the, the younger players that are on this roster, especially from last year's draft. This team has a lot to work with. But is it enough in this one-off game against the Orlando Magic, who are also home? I don't think so. If the Magic can do what they are capable of doing offensively, they'll win this game handily. But guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Obviously, that means this team plays the Boston Celtics and doesn't have to go to play another play-in and then potentially play the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I think may be a better matchup, but I still think it's good to take care of business and just get into the playoffs because they're going to have to go through one of those teams eventually if they want to make a run. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What are your feelings about this game? How did the Magic win? How do they lose? What are you looking out for? And all of the above. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time with more Orlando Magic basketball content.